What's up everybody, Straw Hats Are Cool here, and we are back again with another video. Going to be doing another market watch today. I know it's been a couple weeks again, but just giving the market a little bit time to settle, as well as just giving myself some time to kind of wrap up the school year. Just a little over a month left, and then I plan on doing content more consistently, and hopefully over the summer, kind of streamlining things enough that I will be able to maintain a more consistent schedule during the school year. But with all of that said, let's not waste any time. Before we get into the video though, as always, I do just want to say thank you so much to everyone who's supporting me in the channel. If you're enjoying the content and you're not already, do consider subscribing to the channel, as it does help me out a lot. If you're enjoying this video in particular, a like always helps as well. If you're not already, we do also have a Discord, and a link for that will be down in the video description. Talk about the market, and I will be doing a giveaway for a starter deck 13 over there probably today, if things go well. It will just be the deck. I did already open it. Well, I opened the box. I opened the alternate art promo pack, but I'll be giving away the deck and the deck box, trying to get some of those alts, and I don't want to ship it in the sealed box because the ultimate starter deck boxes are relatively large and shipping is rather expensive. But I will be giving away the deck and deck box, so if you're interested in that, do consider joining the Discord. I should have that giveaway going up sometime today. If not, it will be a little bit later this week. Then if you plan on picking up any singles off of TCG Player, I do have an affiliate link, and a link for that will be in the video description as well. If you use that link and end up buying any cards, a small percentage of your purchase will go towards supporting me and the channel. But again, with all of that said, let's go ahead, not waste any more time, and jump right into the market watch, starting things off with our chase cards. First, we've got Manga Shanks. And don't really have anything to say about Manga Shanks. Nothing has changed since the last time we looked at it. Still sitting at about $2,000. We've not had any sales since mid-March, so just about right on about a month now since we had our last sale on TCG Player. So Shanks, I could see it dropping just because it's not selling, but as of right now we're sitting around $2,000. It's been pretty steady there, but they're not selling, so maybe you'll get lucky if you're looking to pick one of those up. Pretty similar situation for Ace, though we did have one sell just a couple of days ago, actually quite a few in the last couple weeks, and they're selling right around $1,000, somewhere between $900 and $1,000, but seems to be pretty steady there. Glad to see this one came down a little bit from where it was, so that the collectors can pick this one up a little bit more easily. But again, this one, it's been holding pretty steady around that $900,000 mark. We are seeing some sales on this one, so I do figure this one's gonna kind of hold that price point for quite a while now. But with Shanks, maybe we'll see that one drop a little bit. Soga King sitting right around $500. This one has actually been dropping quite a bit over the last month or so. Was right around $650, I want to say, for a while, and then over about the last month it's dropped down, and now we've got some listings there at about $520. We do have this one at about $500, not from a gold star seller, but 500 sales and pretty solid feedback, so probably a legit listing. But if you're still a little skeptical, for just about an extra $10 you can get one from a certified hobby shop, which is also a gold star seller. So if I was going to pick one up, that's probably what I would do just to be safe. But Soga King on the dip a little bit, and I think that's good. I do think that there was a little bit, as we've seen on the channel already, mangas did get hyped up a little bit too much, I think. I think this is a fair price for this one, especially considering that it's from set 3 now, which is right about a year old now. Coming up will be in the summer. So yep, not much else to say on that one. Seeing a similar thing to Soga King with Sabo. It's right around $500 right now. The Soga King and Sabo have kind of been just matching each other for most of their runs since 04 release. But again, Sabo was around that $650 price point as well, but over the last month or so it has dropped and is currently around $500. Honestly, I think in my opinion, I think this one might be just a little bit undervalued, but I do think that 04 was also printed a little bit more heavily than 03, so that could have something to do with it. But I think Sabo just being one of the three brothers, as well as this being just a more playable card for those crazy people who do like to play these cards in their decks, I would kind of expect this one to be a little bit more in Soga King for that reason alone. But I'm happy with this one being around $500. I think it's fair. The listings from verified sellers are just a little bit more, but you've got some pretty legit listings here for the $500 price point as well. Eustace Captain Kidd, we've got a moderately played at 700. We have had some sales in the last week for about 800. So the near mint listings are looking a little bit closer to 800, and I think that's reasonable. This one might be going up a little bit, and it could be because of crazy people, kind of like with Sabo. Red Purple Law is going to be exceptionally good moving forward, both EB and 07. And I know I've seen some people on Twitter who are already preparing to bling that deck out. With the manga kids, typically you run 3 to 4 copies of this card in that deck. So if you're really a max rarity guy, you've got a lot of money to spend, I guess maybe that could have something to do with the price on this one going up a little bit. But all in all, the price on this one hasn't changed too much. Been pretty stable since kind of 05 had its run, after it dropped down a little bit around that $800 price point. Similar situation with Law. This one's sitting at about 900, just a little bit more than Kid. Not because it's a more playable card or anything, just because I think Law is a much more popular character than Kid. Not a lot of, not much to say about this one. It's a manga Law, popular character, good looking card. It's a manga. Collectors in particular are going to want it, but outside of that, I don't think there's anything else influencing the price on this one. So been pretty stable at 900, expected to stay that way for some time. May end up seeing these 05 mangas drop because we are supposed to be getting a full reprint for 05, 06, 07, and maybe 08 if I recall, which might sound a little weird considering that 2 of those sets aren't even out yet. But because allocations are so bad, those were the ones that we were confirmed we're getting full reprints for. And then I would imagine sets 1 through 4 will get their reprints in the form of the reprint set, which we will be getting in November. And then of course we've got our manga Luffy still being the most expensive card for in the game that you could pull from a main set. Some of your championship serial cards are more expensive than this, but in terms of card you can pull from the main set, this is kind of your peak, the most expensive card you can get at about $3,200 right now. And we have had some sales on this one. We just had one about 5 days ago at the time of this recording for about $3,000. And this was just one that had a picture. Nothing special about it, not graded or anything, but sold for $3,000. Seeming like $3,000 is where this card is settled. In the beginning, we saw it go all the way up to nearly $5,000, but since then things have settled down, which I think is good to see. I did forget to pull up the Oda signed Luffy, so we're gonna go ahead and pull that one up real quick. For the Oda signature Luffy, it's about $1,500. We are seeing this one actually drop a little bit. It was holding pretty strong around $2,000, but and again in the last couple months, this one has also dropped down in price a little bit, and we've got them selling at about $1,500, which I know might still be a little surprising to people, but I mean, as much as I would like to have all the mangas, this isn't one that even I myself personally would go out of my way to get. I don't think if I had the money. Maybe if we get some other cards like it, but I just think having, multiple mangas that you can display together, incentivize collecting those a little bit more, in my opinion. But it is what it is. Still a very expensive card that you can pull from a main set, more than most of the manga cards. With the exception of Shanks and Luffy, but yeah. And lastly, we've got our OP06 Roronoa Zoro alternate art manga. This one, since release, has been slowly dropping down in price. Near release, it was around 1,500, maybe a little bit more, but since then it's dropped down and we're currently sitting at $1,200. Curious to see if this one falls a little bit more. We are seeing over the last month since release, it has fallen pretty steadily in price. So I wouldn't be surprised to see it drop down a little bit more, maybe settle a little closer to $1,000. But again, this is one I could see going down more later in the year once we get those full reprints for sets 5, 6, 7, and potentially 8. I can't remember how far it went. But that's it for our manga rare, so let's go ahead and jump into our main sets. Trying to do things a little bit differently once we get into some of the main set cards. Try and streamline things a little bit so the videos don't run as long. So let me know what you think about that down in the comments below. But of course, we're going to start things off with our leader cards. For OP01, not a lot of stuff has changed. Your Law, Zoro, and Luffy all kind of pretty stable around that $250 to $300 price point, with Law being the most expensive still, which I do find a little bit surprising because Law has completely fallen off at this point. Despite the support that it gets in EB, the deck has not been finding any success in the current format. I think just with the decks like Black especially being especially prevalent and powerful, it is very difficult for a deck like Law to maintain that full board that what they were able to do in the past. I think cards like the 4-cost Rob Lucci in particular are pretty problematic for this deck, and with all Black decks running it, Law is just not able to keep up, even with that pretty solid support it gets in EB01. Doflamingo, I could see this one maybe going up a little bit more. The deck hasn't been seeing any success too much in Japan or Asia for 07, and they do get some pretty decent support in my opinion. But again, just not quite able to keep up. It's looking like the blue-green Zoro Sanji starter deck leader has actually been able to utilize the Warlord support a little bit better than the Doflamingo, which I'm all for. I'm excited to see that deck doing something, even if it's just winning a couple flagships here and there. But other than that, not much else to say for your leader cards. Potentially you could see Kaido go up as we are getting some purple Animal Kingdom pirate support. The Black Maria in particular, if you have not seen the reveal for that one, looks to be a pretty absurdly good card, but we're going to talk about that more in another video that I'm hoping to push out later this week. So jumping into main set cards, I'm starting off with some of the green cards. Eustace Captain Kidd, your alternate art has gone up just a little bit. It was sitting around $80 and now it's back up to about $95. And I do think that this is likely due to EB being 2 weeks from releasing over here in the West. And the mono green Uta leader is going to be pretty solid. I'm curious to see how much that deck ends up getting played over here. It did win the Nationals equivalent over in Asia for Japan, I believe. So obviously a very good deck for the EB format, despite only getting a couple cards to boost its power. Seems to have been enough to, you know, bring it into more relevance than it has been for our 06 format. But like I said, I'm curious to see how many people end up playing it over here. To me, it doesn't seem like a deck that a lot of people are going to be super interested in over here. Definitely most of our meta has been kind of black and yellow, and I think we've been a little bit more yellow heavy than they have been over in Asia, but we'll just have to see how things pan out. The regular SR is about the same in price. Not much has changed for this one, still about $35. You can see it's been pretty stagnant, but had a very small $2 to $3 increase in the last week or so. Kinemon, there was some hype around this card several months ago before EB released over in Asia, but after finding out that unfortunately the red-green Odin deck is not all that good, the price on this one has dropped back down. You know, No shame in playing the deck though. If you want to play the deck and run this Kinemon in it, I think that's totally cool. I'll probably mess around a little bit with it at some point, just because I really like Odin as a character and had a lot of fun playing the 01 Odin leader back in sets 1 and 2. So probably mess around with it a little bit, but unfortunately the red-green Odin leader was not all it was cracked up to be, and as a result this card is dropping back down in price. Your OP01 Law, both your alternate art and regular, are honestly the cheapest they've been in quite some time. Again, like I said, unfortunately the support that Law gets in EB01 was not enough to bring it back into relevance. Had a very strong run for, you know, sets 1, 2, 3, and 4, but then with the introduction of that Black Lucci in OP05, it's been a lot harder for this deck to keep up. I still think this is a very good card, and as we know, Law is a very popular character, so I do think if you're a collector and you just want to pick up a copy of this alternate art, now's probably a good time to do it, because who knows what future decks or support we're going to get in the future. I still think this is a very good card, so depending on what other decks and leaders we get, I could see this one coming back into relevance. But right now it's $60, which for an OP01 alt I don't think is too bad. It doesn't look like we're going to be getting a full reprint of OP01, but we'll probably get some reprints of specific cards like the SR Law, but we probably won't get reprints of this alternate art. So if you're looking to pick up the alternate art, I think now's probably a solid time to do it. $60 feels pretty good to me, but really up to you. And then Yamato, this card's bad. We talk about this one a lot on the channel. Finally dropped down in price. $33 seems fine for an OP01 secret rare. I still think it could be a little bit lower, but there are some decks that try and run it, and I have seen it pop up here and there as a 2 of in some lists, but I don't know. I think you are just better off playing something else in its place. Like we've talked about, it's just doesn't do anything. It's not impactful the turn you play it, so it needs to live a turn. And with all the removal in the format for all the colors right now, I just think it's too much of an ask for the Yamato. The alternate art, however, if you're again a collector and you're looking to pick up an alternate art, I think $90 is pretty solid. Cheapest it's been in a while, maybe ever. I guess during the very beginning, early, the alternate was only about 40 some bucks, but we saw this one get as high as $160, so being almost half of that now at only 90 feels pretty good. So if you're a collector and you're looking to pick this one up, I think now's a good time to do it. Yamato. For your blue stuff, Boa Hancock, again, this one kind of had a rise for a while because people for some reason thought that you'd play it in Boa, and I guess you can since you are generally playing the Warlord package in that deck, but just because it's the same character as the leader does not mean that it synergizes especially well with the deck, which I think people found out pretty quickly. The Boa deck is solid, but I don't think they typically run this card. Not that it's a bad card, it's just a little bit power crept at this point. Again, it's a 4 cost 5k blocker. You can draw a card with it, but a lot of times it's going to get removed before you use the effect, so you're better off just playing more aggressive or offense cards in its place, in my opinion. Crocodiles at $30 seems a little expensive, but I know there's been a couple Nami players who've been messing around with this and doing okay with it. I do think it's a little interesting that the rare Doflamingo is at $5 right now. Definitely one you might want to look through your bulk, see if you've got some extra copies of this and unload those now. Dofi's a very good card, but it hasn't been seeing a lot of play recently or in the future. Potentially seeing play in the green-blue Zoro Sanji deck that I mentioned earlier, that's running that Warlord package. But other than that, I don't think it's been seeing a whole lot of play. So curious to why this one's as high as it is. I mean, of course, I still play it in Queen, as that's what's been one of my personal favorite decks, and now that I don't have any more tournaments for OPO6, that's kind of been what I'm playing around with for the format. The alternate art's at about $57 right now, which I think is pretty solid. Again, it's a very good card, and it's only a matter of time before I think we get some more leaders or support for blue that might bring this card back into relevance. So if you're a collector or just someone who's looking to invest in the game, I don't think this is a bad time to pick this one up. 3 cost, 4000 power blocker with a very good on play effect. I think this card's super solid. You can see it coming back into relevance in the future. Dracula Mihawk card hasn't been doing much right now. Maybe you're going to play it in Boa Hancock, but other than that, probably not seeing a whole lot of play right now. I do believe that we did get confirmation that this is one of the cards that will be getting a reprint in that reprint set we're supposed to be getting sometime in November. So I expect the regular SR to drop down a bit, but unless you're really looking to play this card, I'd probably stay away from the Mihawk right now, just because we are, like I said, I think supposed to be getting a reprint for this one. Alternate art, $75, not bad considering where it's been at. But like with a lot of these OPO1 alts, we are seeing the prices drop on them pretty considerably, which is good to see. Maybe you play this in Marco in 08, but I think you're probably just running a Whitebeard Pirates package most of the time. Though I guess we do have a Warlord Searcher, so maybe depending on how the format develops, we could see kind of a Warlord variant of the deck pop up. But I think just with having the already existing red support for Whitebeard Pirates, probably won't see this one popping up too much, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. It's getting lower, so if you don't have the card again and you're a collector, might be an okay time to do it. But I'd probably keep your eye on this one. 75 still a little high in my opinion, and I could see it coming down just a little bit more. Lastly, we've got our purple stuff that I wanted to talk about, which is just your Animal Kingdom Pirates card. We are seeing a little bit of hype around these because we are getting that blue-black king or purple-black king leader in OPO8. Your 10 cost Kaido alternate art all the way up to $50. I do think this is a bit inflated. I don't think this is going to be especially good, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I think some people are excited because with a purple black Animal Kingdom leader, you can play cards like Smoker that are immune to KO effects, and then you can play a card like this to wipe your opponent's board and still keep some of yours. One thing to keep in mind though that I think I've been seeing some people talking about is playing Borsalino as well. Do keep in mind that Borsalino effect is only on your opponent's turn, so if you play this 10-drop Kaido, it is going to KO your Borsalino because you're going to be playing it on your turn, and it is not going to have that effect where it is immune to KO effects. So really, you've only got the 5-cost starter deck Smoker, and I want to say it's a 3-cost Smoker from OPO2 that I can think of off the top of my head that have that innate immune to KO effect on your turn. But I don't know, maybe there's something there. We'll just have to wait and see. For the king, I just think this card's pretty power crept at this point, especially when the king leader also has black as one of its colors. This card is just a worse version of Rob Lucci in my opinion. Yes, it's a 7k, but it costs 7. For 1k less power, you're getting Rob Lucci, who is a 4 cost. So I just think, despite the fact that this one's going to be searchable and it's a little bit higher statted, I just don't see any point in playing it when you've got a card like Rob Lucci in the game. Well, that's it for OPO1. Let's jump into OPO2, starting things off with our leaders. Again, I think our leaders are pretty stable right now. Not a lot to say about them. Looks like Garp's just going down. I'm going to say that one felt a little higher for some reason, but guess it's about the same as it has been. So OPO2 leaders, everything settled back down. Not much to say about these. Your alternate art leaders, I think they're the most sought after cards by collectors. So, I think these are all pretty reasonably priced. Maybe Newgate still being a little high, but he is still playable to some extent. So for OPO2, just real quick, want to talk about your red kind of cards that we saw a bit of a spike in price last time we did a market watch, as we did I think right before we did that video get the red blue Marco leaked. Following that hype, things are settling down a little bit. We've got Newgate at about $55, Ace still being rather expensive, around $70. But one thing you need to keep in mind with Ace as well is that there are red purple law decks that are playing this and seeing quite a bit of success. I do think it's pretty good into the mirror, which is I think a matchup you're going to see quite a lot moving forward. EB01 and 07, as that red purple law is looking to be one of the best decks in the format. Previously, I didn't think this card was very good in the red purple law. I thought it was a little hard to play, but with how the deck is built now, if you go second, you can just slam a ramp card like Bond Clay or the Ein from starter deck 5, and that's going to put you at 7 down on your following turn, which does leave you the opportunity to play with this, which could allow you to attack into one of your opponent's rested characters with your leader, and then bottom deck another one with your leader effect, which is pretty good. So pretty good tempo play, I think, for the mirror. And then being a 7k body means that your opponent would have to invest like 2 Gordons or Rise Max into getting rid of this, because it's a 7k body, which I think is pretty good. So I expect this one to hold its price. I could see the Newgates coming down a little bit more just because they're not going to be especially relevant right now, depending on how the 08 format develops when it releases over in Asia. We could see this one going up a little bit more, I think, if the red blue Marco leader ends up seeing a lot of success. And I think the Marco is still pretty good, with the reveal of the Ace character being able to play this off the top. Feels pretty good to me, but I guess again we'll have to wait and see. For your film stuff, unless you plan on playing it in EB, you'd probably stay away from it. If you're maybe looking to unload some of your film stuff, however, I might wait just a couple weeks for EB to release, as I think that's going to be where they're at their highest before they drop back down again. So I probably wouldn't buy these unless you're sure you're going to be playing Uta for the EB format. But you know, I don't think the Luffy's terribly priced or anything. I still think the Nami SR is a little high, but if you're planning on playing the Uta deck, it is a card you're going to need. So, you know, do as you will with this. I think they'll go up right around EB release, and then as we get closer to 07, they're going to tank in price. And then for your black stuff, honestly, unless you plan on playing Gecko Moria moving forward, I don't think you need to be at all concerned about your Borsalinos or your Kuzans. They're going to still be played quite a bit in your EB format, as Sakazuki will still be legal. But as we get to 07, I don't think these are cards you need anymore. So if you're not playing black right now, honestly, especially your Borsalino SRs, might be a good time to get rid of those, because I do think they're going to drop pretty hard in price. And if they become relevant again, it's not going to be at least until 08. And at that point, it'll be September. So we'll be getting closer to that reprint set. And I do imagine that this is one of those cards that will be getting a reprint, since it's just going to be a whole bunch of SRs and rares, from what I can tell, that are going to be getting reprints. I don't think this is a card you're going to need for the 07 format, based on what I've been seeing. The only deck I've seen running this is the Gecko Moria, which, while still a good deck, you do have to change how you play it quite a bit. We are going to talk about that a little bit here in just a minute. But it's the only deck that, from what I can tell, is still running Borsalino and Kuzan. So if you're not playing Gecko Moria moving forward, I don't think these are cards you're going to need to keep in your collection. And it's probably going to be a good time to sell, because as we get away from this 06 format with Gecko being super dominant, I would imagine that this card is going to drop down in price a little bit. Same thing for your Kuzan. Now, Your secret rare Kuzan has gone up just a little bit for the alternate art. I don't know if much has changed with the regular. Gone up maybe just a little bit, but more or less been pretty stagnant. But the reason for this one fluctuating in price just a little bit, there are some black yellow Luffy decks which have been messing around with this one, I believe in the 07 format. You do get access to that 5-cost Egghead Luffy in 07, which I think is an excellent addition to the deck. And in conjunction with Kuzan on the board, you are able to remove just about anything, which is pretty good. But there's been a kind of a debate whether it's more worth it to run your Kuzan as just a big guy you can drop down, or just run Ice Age. It's event, you're not getting a body, but it's cheap and you can use it more. It's more flexible, I would say, than the Kuzan. But been seeing 2 variants run around, some running 2 copies of this, others running 2 copies of Ice Age. But we'll just have to, I guess, see how things develop and see if this ends up becoming more relevant as people play around with that a little more. Sakazuki, on the other hand, this one is going up for a different reason, and this is because the Gecko Moria deck has had to adapt a little bit to play against the black yellow Luffy deck. It is a pretty hard matchup for Gecko Moria because I think a lot of players have found that it is generally best not to attack into black yellow Luffy on the early turns, because you don't want them to get to 0 life so they can start using their leader effect to set up their Ace Sabos and Luffys for their Gecko Moria turns. So you want to make it as difficult as possible for them to get to 0 life, requiring them to use effects like the 5-cost Luffy from the starter deck, Flampe from EB01, the Makino from the starter deck, things like that to bring them down to 0 life. So Gecko Moria is in a hard spot because they don't want to use their leader effect to attack into their opponent's leader, because they don't want them going down to 0 life. So they've kind of adopted this 4-6-8 curve, with Sakazuki being the 6-cost you play in that curve, because it's able to hit a 5-cost naturally, which is good because most of that black yellow Luffy deck is a 5-cost. So you can play this on curve, and unless they played a Sabo, you're going to be able to hit whatever they played. And then it also trashes a card, and since you're not using your leader effect, it does give you a way to help put cards in your trash. So then the 8-drop, which we'll talk about in just a minute, but it's going to be the Isho. And you play the Isho because black yellow Luffy, generally speaking, is building a pretty large hand. So just slamming down that Isho to chip 2 cards from their hand is pretty good, especially since you're not attacking into them early. They're probably going to amass a pretty large hand size. So definitely interesting. I'll need to play around with it a little bit more, learn a little bit more about the matchup, but it definitely sounds interesting. And if you're playing Gecko Moria, it's sounding like you're probably going to want to have 2 copies of the Sakazuki in your deck. So just something to keep in mind if you plan on playing Gecko Moria into 07 or even EB. All right, but that's it for OPO2. So let's jump into OPO3, starting off with our leaders. Again, things are pretty similar. Katakuri is still the most expensive, but honestly, Katakuri is going to fall off going into OPO7. So I would probably avoid this one if you're thinking about picking it up, and kind of see where the price settles after OPO7, because right now Katakuri is one of the better decks in the format, has been since OPO3 really, but going into OPO7 I think this one's going to fall off a little bit. NL definitely takes over as the yellow deck in OPO7, so I could see this one dropping down in price as we get closer to OPO7. For your SP cards, your wanted poster cards, more or less they've dropped down in price. I know for a while Luffy was around $150, and for some reason even the Dofi got up to around $60. During Luffy's peak in 05, this one was closer to $90. But they're all dropped down more or less. Kid still being relatively expensive, as it is an alternate art option for people who want to bling out their Uta decks, as we mentioned. This 8-cost kit is very good in the mono green Uta, but outside of that, not seeing a whole lot of play moving forward. Honestly, I could see the kid dropping again once we get out of the EB format into the 07 format. But for the most part, I think these guys are pretty reasonably priced now. So if you're a collector who was waiting to pick these up, I think now might be a good time to do it. For your 5-cost Marco, sitting about $40 right now, and I have very mixed feelings about this one because while this card does synergize pretty well with the leader effect of the blue-red Marco leader, a lot of the support we're seeing we're seeing for Marco, it's all, you know, blue cards, and we haven't seen any power reduction outside of the leader effect. So I'm still a little skeptical of how good this is going to be, because even with the leader effect, you're only hitting 5Ks consistently, bringing them down to 3 so you can hit them with this effect. So unless we see some other power reduction support, I'm a little bit skeptical of how good this card's going to be. I think you might just get more value out of using your leader effect to bring down the power of a rested character and attack into it with your other characters on the board. But again, we'll have to wait and see what the full set list provides and if we get any more power reduction support for the Whitebeard Pirates type. For your yellow stuff, not much has changed recently. Parosparrow's up a little bit, as is your alternate art Cracker, but I think these are both going to drop again going into the OP07 format. Katakuri's good in 06 and is still going to be good in EB01, maybe even a little better with the addition of the Flampe. Have to wait and see, but these cards aren't going to see any play once Katakuri falls out of favor. Your Charlotte Linlin probably still going to be very good because we are getting that purple yellow pudding leader in 08, so this is probably one you're going to want to hold on to. But if you're not planning to play Katakuri moving forward, I think it's a good time to drop your alts, maybe even your regular SRs if you don't plan on playing those. For Katakuri, on the other hand, though, this is one that you're going to want to pick up now if you're planning to play NL. I think the secret rare being $62 right now is still pretty good. We've seen this card be much higher, and with, I think, NL being top 3 decks maybe in OP07, definitely going to be a popular deck. A lot of the Katakuri players, I think, are going to move to NL as the yellow deck. That is the yellow deck that is the most powerful. So if you don't have your Katakuris, definitely want to have a playset of those. One of the best cards in NL, in my opinion, might be the best card, just being able to get rid of an 8 on your opponent's board, as well as giving you a very strong body, and also being flexible and allowing you to heal yourself as well when you get down to 0 life. As with that NL leader effect, it's essentially healing you twice. And then your pudding, the pudding is probably going to be super good just because we are getting that purple yellow pudding leader in 08. It's looking to be a pretty decent leader, and this is of course still going to be your searcher of choice for that. Lastly, we've got our black cards. So last time I did a market watch, I did miss Isho. I think it went up like right after I uploaded the video. It's calmed down a little bit now, but kind of like I was talking about when I brought up the Sakazuki, this is kind of part of the Gecko Moria curve moving forward. And I could even see this starting to see some play in your 07 Lucci decks as well, as the black yellow Luffy deck alongside Red Purple Law is looking to be 2 of the best leaders. This is a pretty solid card into that black yellow Luffy matchup in particular, so could definitely see this one going up again a little more as we get further into the format. Your CP stuff, your Kakus and Cauliflas have gone up a little bit. Your regular SR Kaku's at $3 right now, which is considerably more than it has been. Still not an expensive card by any means, but this card's been under $1 for the longest time now, so definitely a pretty considerable increase there. Alternate arts at about $40, with your Caulifla being closer to 60. The OP07 Lucci deck is a very solid deck. I think it does fall a little bit short of like your Law, your Luffy, NL, but I could definitely see this one being up there in maybe your top 5. But I definitely think your Bonnie, Luffy, Law, and NL are kind of like your top 4 from what I can tell. But still a very good deck. I'm going to be playing it because I like the CP archetype. Rob Lucci, unfortunately, as good as this card looks, still not seeing any play in those CP decks, but I'll probably mess around with it just because I like this card. And then your Spandam alternate art, it's about $30. You do also have the finalist or regional variant of this card as well, if that's something you're considering. But it is your Searcher of the deck, so of course you're going to be running 4 of this in your Rob Lucci decks. But if you're not looking to bling it out, just pick up your regular art copies, as they're only 15 cents. That's it for OPO3. Let's go ahead and jump on into OPO4, starting things off with our leader cards. Again, not a lot going on here. Does look like our Crocodile might be climbing in price just a little bit, which makes sense as we are getting closer to that EB01 format, where we do get some decent support for Purple Yellow Law. Honestly, the deck might be a little underappreciated. I don't think it's a exceptionally good deck, but I do think the support it gets in EB01 is solid enough to make it at least somewhat viable in the format. But I think with, you know, other black decks and yellow decks, it does just fall a little bit short. For your SPs, Boa Hancock is still your most expensive, but everything else is pretty reasonably priced right now, in my opinion. I think the waifu tax on this one is really the only thing that's keeping this one together, as we saw with the OPO1 alternate art. Even that one's down to 100. Honestly, I would hold off on this one if you're looking to pick it up and see if it gets any lower. I don't see any reason why it should be $30-$40 higher than the OPO1 alternate art. Personally, I think the OPO1 art looks a little better, and I think OPO1 had less shorter printing than OPO4, but that's just my opinion. Other than that, your Sakazuki Magellans are very reasonably priced at $30, with your Law Newgate also being pretty fair at about $60. Again, Sakazuki is a card that could be seeing more play in black decks, specifically Gecko Moria, and Newgate could be very, very relevant in the blue-red Marco leader. So back on topic with your Brokework support, we are seeing the Crocodile alternate art climb just a little bit in price over the last week or so. Nothing crazy, but it is currently about $14 after shipping, so a little more than it has been, but again, nothing crazy. Definitely still pretty cheap alternate art. So if you're looking to have some fun with Purple Yellow Croc and want to bling out your deck, I think it's still very reasonably priced. Miss All Sunday, again, maybe going up just a little bit, but more or less stagnant. Could see it go up just a little bit more as we get closer to the release of EBO1, however. Marco alternate art been popping off, and we expected this. This is one I've brought up for quite some time now. It is just one of the best cards in black, in my opinion, and completely necessary for the black yellow Luffy deck, which, as I keep mentioning, is looking to be one of, if not the best decks in the OPO7 format over in Asia. And we did just get the starter deck released over here this past Friday, so definitely a card people are looking to pick up now. Even your regular art Sabo's gone up quite a bit, so hopefully you picked these ones up a couple weeks ago like I suggested, because probably not getting any cheaper from here is still a staple in most black decks. Just solid blocker, filter, and then making your board immune to those removal effects is super powerful. That effect is countered by red purple Law, and being a 6k does mean they can hit you pretty easily. But I think with the black yellow Luffy deck in particular, it still works out pretty well for you, because you are a 7 to 9k leader most of the time in that deck. which with all the Dawn minusing that the red purple all deck is doing, you are usually still able to edge them out, because while they are able to clear your board, it is very difficult for them to attack into you. But once Sakazuki's gone, I think this card just gets even better, because red purple law is the only deck that really has a way around that KO immunity once Sakazuki rotates out. Yes, there are still going to be blue decks, but blue's not super prevalent in the OP07 format right now. And last stuff for OP04 is your yellow cards. Capone obviously still best 2k counter for yellow in my opinion. Personally, I think this card should get looked at. I think that the trigger effect is just a little dumb considering it's a 2k counter, but maybe that's for a different video. I don't like this card, but I am a queen player, so I also like this card, but you know what I mean. Sanji, I think this one you probably don't need anymore. It's looking like while NL is very good in the EB format and 07 format, you don't really play the Sanji for the most part anymore. So Sanji's kind of fallen out of favor at this point. There are better options now, but we are seeing that Yamato alternate art climb up to $71 right now, which is not surprising. Could see this one going up even more. As I said, I think NL is looking to be right behind that Luffy and Law as one of the best decks for 07, and this is a mandatory 4 of an NL. If you played NL in OP05, you know that this is one of the best cards in that deck alongside your Katakuri. And then in 07 you also get the 10 cost ace as well. So the regular art is still relatively cheap, but as we get closer to OP07, I could definitely see this one going up a little bit more. 375 is not bad at all, so if you don't have these, I would definitely consider picking them up if you're interested in playing yellow in the future formats, specifically NL. That's it for OP04. Let's jump on into OP05. We are seeing the NL leader start to climb back up in price a little bit, I do think. No, it's actually just dropped a little bit, but I wouldn't be surprised to see this one climb back up in price because it's going to be relevant EB in 07. Your Luffy and Sakazuki, while they had their time in 05, they are kind of falling out of favor now. Sakazuki's days are numbered at this point, and Luffy, I think this one's honestly a little bit undervalued right now just because it's Luffy, and it's still not a bad leader, and depending on what purple support we get in future sets, I could see this card being relevant again. Very solid effect. So we'll just have to wait and see what else we get for purple in the future, but honestly think this one's a little undervalued. I'd hold on to your copy if you've got one, and if you don't have one, I might pick one up just because I mean $50 for an alternate Luffy leader doesn't seem too bad in my opinion. For your SPs from 05, Nami of course still being the most expensive at $160, but definitely a lot lower than it's been in months prior, with your Yamato and NL not being, they're pretty close together, but pretty big step behind Nami. Again, definitely saw Yamato being a lot higher at one point, so I'm glad to see that this has come down. None of these cards are super relevant except maybe NL, but even that one I don't think sees a lot of play anymore. So really I just see these as collector items. They look great in person, especially like, you know, these Kaidos and Lucchis. If you don't have them, definitely pick them up for your collection. If you're a collector, they look great. I think that's a solid price for them. Even Uta I think is pretty solid. These cards all look really good. None of these characters in particular though, like I said, super relevant right now, so I think they're gonna be pretty stable in their current pricings, but depending on what support we get in the future, these are cards we could see go up as well. Nami probably biggest suspect is just being a searcher for Straw Hats is very good in a game about the Straw Hat Pirates. So anyways, let's go ahead and move on. We are seeing a little bit of an increase in price for your Bello Betty alternate art. Not too sure why. We did get the Three Brothers deck, and we do have a red yellow Sabo leader in there, so maybe you could try running some of the Revolutionary Army stuff in there, but I don't think that's particularly good. And then the Koala has also gone up as well, being one of the more expensive alts in 05 right now, which is a little bit shocking to me, just kind of seeing how much the prices for 05 stuff is tanked. But I guess it shouldn't be surprising. A lot of this product was opened because people were chasing those manga cards, of course. So not surprised, I guess, to see things drop so much, but a little bit surprising to see this being one of the more expensive alts in the set right now, and it only being 22 bucks, so not bad. Probably run it in the Sabo just because you can get you're able to use that on play effect for that -3k, which is a very solid effect for a 2k. Just is a little hard to use being leader locked behind that Revolutionary Army typing. Baby 5 card, still going to be good. I still think your Bonnie deck is going to be running this at 4, so if you're anticipating to play Bonnie moving forward in 07, definitely one you're going to want to pick up. It is starting to drop a little bit in price, as people are kind of losing the hype right now, but I imagine that hype's going to pick back up as we get closer to OP07 releasing. And I think like Bonnie and NL are kind of fighting for that top 3 spot, right up there with NL, or right up there with Black, Yellow, Luffy, and Law. So definitely think Bonnie is going to be a very good deck, and if you plan on playing it and alting it out, you're probably going to want some copies of this Baby 5. The Eustace Captain Kidd, it was a super good card in your red purple Law, so I could see both your alternate and regular going up a little bit more as we get into that EBO1 format and closer to OP07, but I'll have to wait and see. There are a lot of listings for your regular SR right now, so it might stay pretty stable around that $6 price point, but I wouldn't be surprised if it goes up. And then lastly, for your black stuff, Rebecca alternate arts dropped pretty hard now that we have the SP variant in OP06, which has kind of taken the max rarity slot away from this alternate art, so people who are looking to really alter decks out would prefer to have that SP. But honestly, if you're just looking for an alternate art for Rebecca, don't think this one's bad at all. Rebecca is still one of the best cards in black. Don't see it going away anytime soon. Rob Lucci, with Sakazuki going away, this one kind of loses some of its relevance, but still just one of the best cards in black. Still going to be playing it in Gecko Moria, I would imagine, and you'll definitely be playing this in your OP07 Rob Lucci leader. You get some pretty cool combos with Rebecca, as you get the Spandime leader or Spandime character in EB, I think, which is a 3 cost that you can get back from your trash to play to get back a Lucci from your trash and play it. So allows you to just Rebecca into Lucci essentially, which is pretty absurd, though you do need to have a pretty full trash to get used out of that effect. However, with your OP07 Lucci leader needing you to trash 2 cards for its when attacking effect, it's pretty easy to maintain a pretty big trash in that leader. So definitely a pretty cool combo. Excited to mess around with that. But that is it for OP05, so let's go ahead and jump into OP06. I think we're making pretty good time today. Let me know what you think down in the comments below, though. Starting things off with our OP06 leaders, Yamato being the most expensive at about $156 right now. Meh. I mean, it's a fine leader, but it's mostly just the waifu tax and the fact that it's Yamato. Like we see with the Secret Rare Yamato in OP01, Yamato cards are just needlessly expensive for seemingly no reason. And then Reiju and Gecko Moria right behind it, which doesn't surprise me. Reiju's have been a very solid leader for OP06. However, unfortunately, it does fall off pretty hard moving forward, as it has a almost unwinnable matchup into Red Purple Law, which has been unfortunate. Gecko Moria, like I said, still good, but you are going to have to adapt your play style. And then, unfortunately, Perona not performing quite as well as I'm sure some people had hoped, including myself, but still a solid leader. It's got that waifu tax too. And then you've got Cody and Uta, who are just kind of here. I think a lot of people are just kind of tired of seeing Uta at this point, as we technically have 3 leaders. The mono red one maybe kind of doesn't count because it's so bad, but then we got a starter deck, and then we got this one, and now our green starter deck reprint is going to be Uta. So honestly, I'm just a little tired of seeing Uta at this point, and the leader's just not good. So that's it for your OP06 leader cards. Onto your SPs. Rebecca and Linlin kind of taking your top spot for the most expensive ones, being pretty close in price, with Rebecca just being a little bit more expensive. As I said, this is like your max rarity version of Rebecca now. So most people who are looking to ult out their decks are chasing this card. It does look great too. I think the colors on this one are a lot better than the 05 alt. The 05 one just seems like a little faded with the colors, and this one's just very vibrant. Honestly, all of the SPs in 06, very vibrant, great colors. I love all these cards. But yeah, Rebecca, one of the best cards in the game, and very good looking SP, so it makes sense to me that it is the most expensive one. Linlin, again, also very, very good card. This one being a little bit more restrictive, as you do have to have that Big Mom Pirates type leader, but Katakuri is still good up until 07, and then in 08 we're going to be getting that pudding leader, so this card's probably going to stay pretty high, but might see it drop back down a little bit going into 07, and then rising back up as we get closer to the 08 release. And then you've got Buggy and Miss All Sunday kind of sharing that $75 price point, being your kind of your mid-tier SPs for the set. I love this Buggy. If there's one of these SPs I'm going to be trying to get a playset of, probably Buggy, just because this card doesn't have any other alternate art variants, whereas all of these other ones are SRs, so they do. Yeah, I really like the Buggy. Miss All Sunday, honestly, I think this one could have looked a little better, but it still looks great. And then Sugar and Borsalino are just kind of here. Little surprised that Sugar's more than Borsalino. I feel like Borsalino is a more playable card, and personally, I like the art on this one a little bit better, but hey, that's just me. Treasure Rare Nami, most controversial card that's ever been printed. Looks like the treasure rares aren't as rare as a lot of people initially thought, and coupled with the fact that a lot of people don't like this card, like I said, very controversial card. Not a very expensive card. Kind of sucks that I pulled 3 of this one and could have pulled something else, but I guess, you know, $75 still ain't bad for a card that you're pulling from a main set. A lot of the other arts are a lot cheaper than this, so I guess, you know, could have done a lot worse than this, but definitely would have been happy with just one. Didn't need to see this one 3 times. Shariah, very good card in Red Purple Law. So we are seeing this one climb up just a little bit in price here, which is not all that surprising to me. Like I said, Red Purple Law, great deck moving forward. For your green cards, Hody Jones, your SRs for 06 finally starting to drop down just a little bit, which is good to see. Alternate art only being $24 is a little surprising to me. I know green's not super relevant right now, but I still think that this Hody Jones is an exceptionally good card and will become more relevant whenever green gets the support it needs. Though I suppose that this is not a card that's been seen play in Bonnie, and that is going to be your green tech of choice moving forward. Secret Rare Zoros dropped down. Good to see. I think, you know, $16 is fair for this one. Solid card for green, but can be a bit of a big investment, because if it is removed the turn you play it, you basically just wasted your whole turn, as it is a 9 Dawn investment, and with all the removal in the format, it's not impossible for that to happen. In fact, there's a pretty good chance it will. This is something your opponent's gonna want to get off the board as soon as it hits the field. Though definitely good in the yellow matchup, as they don't currently have any outs to it until EB when NL gets Rygo, and that is a perfect out to this card. And then your alternate art about $61, which I think's a little high, but it's Zoro, so I guess. Sanji, your regular secret rare is about the same as Zoro, around that $15 price point ish. And then the alternate arts drop back down now. These were matching each other following the reveal of the red blue Marco leader, but hype's died down now. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see how well that Marco ends up performing, and if this is kind of one of those key pieces for that deck. If it is, I definitely would see this one going back up in price again. And honestly, $43 for a secret rare doesn't feel too bad to me. If you don't have this one, might be okay to pick it up, to be honest. For your purple stuff, Ichiji's dropping down in price again. Like I said, unfortunately the Reiju deck gonna be pretty hard to play moving forward, as red purple law is gonna start to take over the format. Kind of same thing with Judge. Both these cards dropping already. We saw this one, I want to say, get as high as like $30 at one point, but now it's dropping pretty quick as we are at the end of that OP06 format. Reiju, on the other hand, holding her price very steady. SR still being one of the more expensive ones for the set, as well as the alternate art being $80. But this card is still extremely playable and one of the most important cards for that red purple law deck we keep talking about. So no surprise there. I don't see Reiju dropping anytime soon, and to be honest, I only see it going up, as it is just a very, very good card. For your black stuff, Absalom's dropping down a little bit now. Like I said, Gecko Moria is still a playable deck, but definitely gets a little bit harder to play. We're also seeing our Perona alternate drop, which I think is very good. I think this card has been super inflated in price, and I still think it is, but I guess waifu tax, a lot of people must like Perona, but glad to see that it's coming down. So not surprised at all to see either of these two come down in price. To be honest, I only see them getting cheaper from here. But your Gecko Moria, on the other hand, might be the best card that's ever been printed, so don't see this one dropping too much in price. Down to $16 on your regular SR though, which is not too bad, and then your alternate art being right around $100, which I think is to be expected. I'm not going to say it's a good price, but I think it's to be expected with, you know, the fact that Black Yellow Luffy runs this, Gecko Moria runs this, and Lucci is going to run this in 07, and for the remainder of Sakazuki's time in the game, he's going to be running that as well. So just kind of an automatic 4 of in all the decks that have black as one of their colors. Not surprising that it's one of the most expensive alts in the set. Might actually be the most expensive non-FP alt in the set. And then lastly, we've got our yellow stuff. Biggest surprise to me here is that the SR Hiyori is now your most expensive non-alternate art SR from the set. And I have to imagine this is just due to the fact that the Three Brothers Ultimate Starter deck released, and the Hiyori is one of your key pieces and 2k counters for the Black Yellow Luffy deck, allowing you to take one of your own life and then replace it with something else. Allows you to do one of two things. Either you can load a Ace, Sabo, or Luffy to your top life so that you can play their kid variant to cheat it out the top and buff up your leader. Alternatively, you can just use it to take a life and then put nothing back as another option to bring yourself down to 0 life, as a lot of players are starting to avoid attacking the Black Yellow Luffy leader in the early turns in order to make it more difficult for them to get to 0 life and start using that leader effect in succession. Alternate art's about the same price as it's been though, but I could actually see this one going up a little bit more as we get closer to EB01 and 07, when the Black Yellow Luffy leader really starts to take off as a deck. I think for the remainder of EB, it's still going to be a little sketchy because I think Sakazuki still has a very solid matchup into it, being able to bottom deck your characters and get around the KO immunity that Sabo provides. I think is something that gives the deck a little bit of an advantage in that matchup. So I think until 07, the deck's going to be okay. And then once 07 releases and Sakazuki is banned, I think it's going to be, you know, one of the best decks in the format. That is it for OP06. Let's jump into our starter decks before looking at some promos and closing out the video. So starter deck 6 still being one of your more expensive starter decks, of course, with deck cards like Hina and Great Eruption being extremely expensive. But what I will say is, unless you're planning to play Gecko Moria or Sakazuki through EB, try and sell these cards now, because this card gets banned as soon as 07 releases. So no point in keeping these if you're not playing them right now. And then for Hina, this one will probably hold its price. The Rebecca Hina combo is still solid, but again, without Sakazuki, I'm not sure what decks will be running this. Gecko Moria still might run a couple copies, and Lucci might still run a couple copies, but a lot of the lists just aren't running Hina anymore, as good as it is in conjunction with Rebecca. So again, if you're not planning to play either of these cards, I'd probably try and sell them now. I think they're going to get cheaper later down the road. For starter deck 7, Charlotte Linlin is still very expensive. Not surprising, as it is one of the cards you play in that NL deck, which again, like I said, is fighting for that top 3 decks in OP07. So definitely think you're going to want to have your Linlins. May even get a little bit more expensive as we get closer to 07, when the deck really takes off, as they get access to the 10 cost secret rare ace. And Brule is also up to $5 again. We are seeing a lot of the Katakuri decks are running 2 copies of this card now, and it being one of the 2 ofs for the starter deck makes it one of the more expensive cards just on that fact. So again, looks like you can still get sealed starter decks for about $36, which seems like a good deal to me. Definitely would be better if you could get them in MSRP, but 2 Linlins alone is going to run you about that, and then you're still getting your 2 Brules and all the other cards if you may need them. But honestly, just for these 2 cards alone, I think it's worth buying a sealed starter deck if you don't have these. I want to talk about starter deck 5 as well. Uta, you know, being one of the SRs from the deck, still relatively expensive, but one of the more surprising suspects is Ein, being, I believe this card is a 4 of in the deck, so you may even have extras of these if you bought 2 starter decks. They're $8.50 right now, and this is purely because of Red Purple Law. Like I said, with that deck, most of the time you want to go second and either play Ein or Bond Clay on your first turn to ramp, so that you're going up to 7 on your next turn, which gives you the ability to do things like play Ace, play down a character, still use your leader effect, things like that. Really just spam the board following that turn, as well as removing bodies on your opponent's board. So Ein might be a little surprising, but very, very good card for that Red Purple Law deck. I'm honestly shocked that it's this expensive, because like I said, I don't think this is a 2 of in the deck. So you buy 1 starter deck, you should have 4 of this card. So if you bought 2, you probably have extras of this card, and definitely get rid of them now, because that's insane. And then lastly, I just wanted to quickly talk about the 3 Brothers starter deck. This starter deck's been a little bit harder for some people to get on release, because they do have that 3-card alternate art pack in them. If you're not interested in the alternate arts, you can just pick up the decks for, you know, a little under MSRP. I think MSRP is around $35, or you can pick up just a deck box for about $30. So if you're just looking to pick up the deck, it shouldn't be too hard. But if you're looking to find a sealed copy of the deck with that 3-card promo pack in it, going to be a little bit harder to do. Luffy Leader being the most expensive one, of course, and then followed by the Ace, which I want to say is a little surprising, but this is also played in NL in some builds, so I guess I shouldn't be too surprised by that. Then you got your other leaders, and honestly, everything else seems fair, I guess. I mean, maybe some of these are a little bit overpriced, like the kids, as you are getting 3 of these at random in every starter deck. But I don't know. I think everything's pretty reasonable. Ace, a little bit expensive maybe, but other than that, not too surprised by any of this. Good luck with your starter decks. I hope you get the Luffy leader. I was luckily able to get mine in one of my starter decks, fortunately, so very happy about that. That's it for our starter decks. Let's quickly look at some promo cards. Red Purple Law is very good, and having access to both Gordon and Rise Max essentially allows you to run 8 copies of Gordon. So unfortunately, while initially I thought that the reprint in the form of Rise Max would bring this card down in price, it's actually just allowing it to go back up in price because you can play both in Red Purple Law. Your film promo Law is also pretty expensive, about $20. Another very good card for your Red Purple Law deck. This one should go down at some point though, because at some point in the near future we should be getting a different variant of this promo. They did over in Asia, so we should be getting it at some point. If I had to guess, we might get it as our 07 tournament pack card, which would be great as it's, you know, one of the best decks in 07, and would be a great opportunity for newer players to pick up a couple copies of these cards just by showing up to their local game store to play. So that's my hope. Fingers crossed that that's how we get the reprint, but we'll just have to wait and see. For your Dawn cards, a lot of these Straw Hat cards, as I've mentioned before, are going up in price, and it's because these aren't being given out at events right now. Maybe if we get some 3-on-3 cups again, we could see these come back, as they were given out for those in the past. I do hope we get some more of those 3-on-3 events. I had a lot of fun at the one I was able to attend. Your Celebration Pack Foiled Championship Dawn is starting to go back up in price. They were relatively expensive and then settled around $40, but now it's back up to $53. So if you're looking to pick up one of these, I might do it now. Only 9 listings left. And we probably won't ever be getting more of these, so it's going to be hard to get your hands on those. Gear 5 Dawn are about $40 right now, which isn't too bad in my opinion. If you still got some regionals to attend, of course, just pick them up there. But after this regional run, if you're looking to get a set of these, you might want to do it shortly after that, because I don't think we're getting these after this regional run. It looks like we're going to be kind of getting that silver, almost 3D looking Dawn, which is a little unfortunate. I think this is a lot better than that one, but hey, it is what it is. Gold Dawns are going up a little bit. Again, I think they're a lot better looking Dawns, but if you don't have one, they aren't being given out anymore, so might be something that some people just want to pick up. 38 listings on it right now, so pretty healthy there. Wouldn't be one I would run out of your way to get, but over time I could see this one going up even just a little bit more. That's it for Dawn though. On to your winter cards. Nami's actually been going back up again, which is a little bit surprising. Not too sure why. Maybe people are planning on playing this in Marco, as it does allow you to use your leader effect even if you tap out. But I feel like having Haruta as a searchable option in that deck might just be a little bit better. Of course, the winter version of Bonnie is something a lot of people who are playing the Bonnie deck in 07 are going to want. But you do also have the Celebration Pack variant, which we'll look at in just a minute. And then you got Kaya up here as well. I'm personally still looking to get one more copy of Kaya. This one's probably going to end up staying one of the more expensive winter cards, just because it is the only alternate art variant of Kaya. Cards like Shirahoshi have other alternate art variants and are even going to be getting more once we get that Bandai Card Fest binder that's going to be releasing later this year at some point. But other than that, everything's pretty stable in the winter card department. Your winter Kaido is going up just a little bit, which isn't all that surprising after getting the reveal of the Black Maria we got yesterday. Insanely good card. could allow you to bring even like a deck like Starter Deck Kaido back in the format, and you maybe wanting to run some copies of this card. For your celebration pack cards, Nami's gone back up in price. I want to say this one dropped down to about 120, 115, but it's back up to 160 again. Again, maybe kind of similar to Winter Nami. People are thinking about maybe playing this in Marco, but if there's something I'm missing and you know why this card's gone up in price, be sure to leave that down in the comments below. And then only 4 listings left on the Celebration Bonnie. I think this is the best looking version of the Bonnie card, so if you're looking to really max rarity out your deck, you're definitely going to want 4 copies of this Bonnie. And then honestly, all your other Celebration Pack cards are fairly reasonable. I still need to pick up a couple of these just for my collection. I think the Sentomaru in particular looks really, really nice, especially in comparison to its winter variant, as it doesn't have the Pacifista in the background anymore, which I think takes away a lot from the card. For your event pack, celebration, or championship packs, or whatever you want to call these, just event pack stuff in general, Suru is still being the most expensive, but it is dropping in price, and I would say that's likely due to the fact that we should be getting our best collection volume 1 binders pretty soon. Unfortunately for most of us, I do think those got delayed in shipment a little bit. I myself got an email just a couple days ago in regards to that, which is a bit unfortunate. Really looking forward to finally getting my hands on those, as we pre-ordered them like back in October or something stupid. But it is what it is. We'll still be getting them relatively soon. Then your Luffy up there as well. I think this is just a very nice card to have in your collection. Kind of nice to see that these Zoros aren't too expensive, and everything else fairly reasonably priced now, which is nice to see. For a while, a lot of these event pack cards were rather expensive. If you've been playing since the beginning like me, you might remember that this Jinbei being as expensive as, I want to say $100 is where it kind of peaked, which was a bit absurd. Judge stuff, Queen, still going to be a good card. Probably going to play it in black, purple king, if I had to guess. Just very, very good card there. And Helmeppo also being there. It's a card sees play just because it's a pretty good 2-cost target to bring back off your Gecko Moria. And then I just want to point this out. We looked at the Doflamingo in 01. The 01 rare is actually a little more expensive than the Judge one. So if you are looking to pick up just your regular Doflamingo, go ahead and pick up the Judge copy. It's foiled. I mean, it's got the stamp and just a little bit more of a flex than the regular one, I suppose. Other than that, not a lot to say here. Maybe see Brook go a little bit more as we get into the EB format, but that's about it there. Store championship stuff, Chopper's up a little bit. We get that film support here in about 2 weeks. Gecko Moria, still a good card, like I said. We are still seeing Warlords do okay. While Doflamingo himself is not the leader that's being run a lot of time, Boa Hancock and the blue-green Sanji, Zoro Sanji leader of all things, has been running that Warlord package and seeing some level of success with it. Brule is still pretty good. Like I said, we've been seeing it as a 2 of in a lot of Katakuri decks. But other than that, everything else for store championship stuff's really inexpensive. Treasure Cup cards, they're still expensive. Not at all surprising. I can't remember what set of cards we're getting for the next Treasure Cup. I think I've got one I'm playing in about 2 or 3 weekend. But we'll see. I can't remember what cards we're getting there. Yeah. And then lastly, just kind of some of your championship cards. Borsalino and Kuzan, I could finally see dropping down in price. But we may actually see the Jozus go up, because people who are really crazy for the red, purple, or red, blue Marco leader may want to really bring out their decks. So I could potentially see this one going up a little bit more. But that's it for our promo stuff. Quickly going to look at some stamped cards, because some of the stamped cards have been popping off recently. Your film cards are rather expensive, and Impel Down All-Stars. I guess this is how Nami players cope with not having many alts. They just buy these stamped cards that don't look hardly any different to max their decks. I know those hardcore Nami players are out there, and that's the only thing I can think of for why these cards would be so expensive. Same thing with Sanji's Pilaf. The Nami players need to have something to alt out, I guess. Rubber Band of Doom as well. All these cards that are played in Nami, weirdly expensive. The Air Door, I still needed one more copy of this card just because I wanted it. But I don't think I'm going to be doing that anytime soon, because $35 for one of those is a little absurd. Air Door is not really run in any of the Lucci decks in 07 from what I can tell, but hey, you know, I'd mess around with it. I guess I'm not the only one. Virgo, also rather expensive, but I think this one's going to tank pretty soon, because once we get EB, we get the T-Bone, which I think more or less just replaces this card. 5 cost, 5k, 2k counter. Still Navy searchable, but a much better effect than this one in my opinion. Baby 5, rather expensive. Might be one of the 2Ks you run in Bonnie. I'm not too sure. Can't think of any other reason why this one would be so expensive. Other than that though, 04 unfortunately just not got a lot of good cards in that set. At least as far as the uncommons and commons go, there are quite a few good rares and SRs in 04. For your anniversary one, these ones still don't have pictures, so probably never will, but a lot of these are still very expensive for some reason. Nico Robbins still being $62, and they do sell here and there. So if you got these, honestly, I'd just unload them personally, but that's just me. And then lastly, for your Wings of the Captain OP06, a lot of your Germa stuff still relatively expensive, which isn't surprising because, again, you do have to run a very specific, you know, list of cards from the set, and so there's not a lot of alting out you can do. So you do need the stamp cards if you're looking to max rarity everything. Gendry being the most expensive card from what I can tell though, just being a very good 2k for Gecko Moria. And with that, that just leaves me with one last thing to say, which is do not, and I repeat, do not buy the pre-sales. EBO run releases in just under 2 weeks now. I'm not sure how difficult it is going to be to obtain these cards, but don't buy the pre-sales. People are buying a regular rare for $4 a piece, and like, it's not just a couple people, it's like 6 or 7 of them and multiple copies for each of them. This card is going to end up being like 50 cents once the set actually releases, so please, for the love of God, don't buy the pre-sales. But with all that said, we've reached the end of the video. Thank you so much to everyone who tuned in to watch the video. Did end up still being about an hour and 22 minutes, so despite the fact that I tried to speed things up a little bit, still rather long, but hopefully if you're into this kind of stuff, you stuck with it and then still enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you've not done so already. But with all that said, I'm going to wrap this video up, and I will catch you all in the next video. Peace.